goes on in sports, about relationships, about sportsmanship, about confidence, about attitude. And this morning I'm calling you live from California, where we're doing the show from out here, and I'm looking forward to this show very much. It's been a very emotional week in Kansas City this past week. So many things have gone on. And you know, on this show we talk about sports. We talk about building confidence. We talk about dealing with choking. We talk about how to deal with athletes and coaches and parents, and we delve into these topics each and every Sunday morning. But this week we're going to take a little bit different twist, because this past week in Kansas City, as you know, there have been tragedies. There have been some awful tragedies that have gone on. Last Sunday morning at the Jewish Community Center in a Village Shalom, which are just about a mile and a half away from our studios, there was a tragedy where a very distorted individual came and killed 3 innocent people. We all know about this story. We all know what's happened. These 3 people have been laid to rest this past week. And as someone who talks about relationships on this show, I thought it would only be appropriate to really have this show focus on what happened last week, but take this into the world of sports. Because this was a hate crime. This is a man who's a sick man who came to Kansas City to hurt people. And I'm sensitive to this because I work out at the Jewish Community Center every Sunday morning after our show. I go there and swim laps every Sunday morning. And my oldest son, who's 24, was also there last week, and he was playing basketball. We both left the Jewish Community Center a couple hours before the tragedy occurred. And I'm fortunate that I wasn't there when this happened. My son was fortunate, as well as a number of people I know. And consequently, this thing has really bothered me because 3 innocent people, needless to say, were killed, which for no reason. And it's been talked about all over the country. I've had all kinds of people contact me asking to make sure I was okay, my son was okay. And it's been something that's really bothered me immensely this past week, because the word hate was involved in this. It's a hate crime. And you know, it's made me think a lot about life over the past week, about how precious it is, and just about the world of sports and where sports has gone. Because just a few days before, and I know some people are going to say this doesn't correlate, but in my opinion it does. A few days before, the Women's NCAA National Basketball Championship occurred in Nashville, Tennessee, actually where I went to college at Vanderbilt University. And the coaches, and we touched on this last week on the show, Gino Auriemma and Muffet McGraw, brought 2 undefeated teams down to Nashville to play for the Women's NCAA Championship. During their press conference prior to the game, the day before the game, Muffet McGraw said in a press conference that the 2 programs are past the point when asked about the lack of civility that goes on with them. She went on to say that both programs have no respect for each other, and then said, "Is there hate between you 2? And she said that's a fair assumption. I think this is a fierce rivalry. There's a lack of civility, and there's hatred." You know, when we look at the world of sports, it's about competition, it's about rivalries, it's about challenges, it's about pain, expectations, or all these emotions that go into sports. But when you take that word, which is hate, and you expand it into the world of sports, I think we've gone too far. I know growing up, for years, we had the Chiefs-Raiders rivalry was a hated rivalry. The Royals-Yankees was a hated rivalry. KU and Missouri is a hated rivalry. KU and K-State is a hated rivalry. And after the past week, it just started to occur to me, I'm 59 years old, do we really need to use that word in describing sports? Do we need to use the word hatred when it comes to competitions? Are we teaching kids the wrong things by bringing these words into this? I get rivalries, I get competition. It's what makes it exciting. But have we gotten to the point where that word has expanded too far into sports? Was there a reason for the head coaches of the two teams playing in the national championship for the women's basketball championship, NCAA championship, for that title, to talk about hatred with each other? You don't have to like each other, but do you have to go that far? Well, that's what I'd like to get into today. And I'd like to open up our phone lines right away. Our phone number, as always, is 913-381-0810. 913-381-0810. Today is Easter. Passover is going on. There are a lot of religious connotations with everything that's happened this past week. And one thing I can say is I'm proud to be a Kansas Citian after the way the community has come together and the way this community has shown support for the families of these three victims and of this senseless tragedy that occurred. Friday night there was a walk in honor of these victims. Over 3,000 people entered this walk or participated in the walk, walking from the Jewish Community Center to Village Shalom and back. Just out of the blue, boom, just like that, 3,000 people showing support. The community has shown tremendous courage this week in standing up and expressing how everyone in the community feels about what went on this past week. So I'd like to get your thoughts. I'd like to hear from you if you're a parent. I'd like to hear from you if you're a sports fan. I'd like to hear from you if you're a coach, if you're an official, if you're an athlete. Have we taken the word hatred and used it in sports too much? Have we put it, does it even belong in sports? Is that a word we need to eliminate? You know, at the end of sports contests, you see a lot of people shake hands afterwards. You see a lot of people who don't. Hockey players, after attacking each other on the ice, spend the game afterwards going through the handshake line. It's a requirement. Whether they like each other or not, they go through that line and shake hands. College basketball teams, most of them almost always do it. Some players don't. You see some players walk off the court. In the NFL, after games, you see a lot of players shake hands, meet, hug, after going to the battle to try to win. But when the game's over, the game is over. Have we lost respect in the world of sports? Has that word left us? In the events of this past week, the tragedies that occurred in Kansas City, have made me start to think about this. Has the word respect left us in the world of sports? I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. This morning I'm doing the show live from Los Angeles. And I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear from you if you are an athlete, if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're a fan, if you're an official. Has the word hate become too enmeshed in the world of sports? Do we use that word and not use it? And should we not be using it? Well, I want to get your thoughts. I want to get your opinions. Our phone number, as always, is 913-381-0810. 913-381-0810. How have the events of this past week affected you as a parent? Like I said earlier, I was at the Jewish Community Center just a couple hours before this tragedy occurred, as I am every Sunday after the show when I do my morning swim. My son was there playing basketball. Fortunately for us, we left. It easily could have been us who were, my son and I could have been shot. People I know who work out there could have been shot. This tragedy could have been much, much worse. Fortunately, it was raining on Sunday, or there have been lots of people on the tennis courts. The word hate, has it become too enmeshed in our society to the point where even in contests, competitions in sports, it's being used, and it shouldn't be used? I want to hear from you. Let's get some calls in here. Once again, our phone number is 913-381-0810. 913-381-0810. All right, we have our first call of the morning. Let's see what Stephen has to say. Stephen, good morning. I'm Dr. Jacobs. How are you?
You have me on the air.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Well, another terrible tragedy in the world, and this time it hits close to home. And we have these conversations a lot. I mean, I remember the soul-searching in all dimensions after 9/11. Can we even use the word bomb in a bomb pass anymore? We do have a degree of self-checking, and times like this to reflect are good.
You know, this
Is there
is
too much hate?
Go ahead, sorry.
Is there too much hate in sports?
I think so.
Any hate is too much. But
what are we teaching kids, Stephen? What are we teaching kids by using that word? And I mean, the word needs to be eliminated from, I mean, let's face it, it will never go away. People are always going to hate each other. There's going to be these things that go on. But I think we need to start somewhere by educating people. And I think we can do this in sports. Sports is about competition. It's about rivalries. It's about teaching respect and learning about the whole psychological component. And have we gone too far to start using that word when we talk about sports?
That does go too far. It's very hard to look and see that the other team, they've got fans just like us, who sit at the bars just like us, say the coaches are making bad decisions, an idiot, and sometimes use words a lot worse, just like us, and have lives that say, you're taking it too seriously, it's just a game, just like us.
Because when it's over, it is just a game, and when it's over, you still have to be able to deal with life and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people don't deal with life and move on because they let it absorb them and become part of them to the point that it goes too far. There's nothing wrong with a healthy competition. There's nothing wrong with wanting to beat that person on the other side of the tennis court or the other side of the line in football or the other team. But when the game is over, we need to start showing more respect. We need to start showing each other that we do respect each other. Hey, great job, good effort. Now let's move on with our life and be glad we got out of this without an injury and move on. But when we start talking about hatred and expanding it, hatred is such an awful word, but taking it into sports is going too far. When the coaches at Notre Dame and UConn talk about hating each other before the national championship basketball game, what does that say to the coach of a 10-year-old girls softball team? Well, if they hate each other, we can hate each other too. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that, and it is part of sports. I mean, you will always have the part of sports that is crazy and wild, and we need to be working on civilizing the players, the coaches. I mean, we want our players to play hard. We want our coaches to come up with the best strategies, but it is just a game. And
Stephen, you hit it right on the head. It is just a game, and that's what we need to look at. Sir, thank you for calling in this morning. I very much appreciate your thoughts.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. That frees up our lines here at 913-3810-810. 913-3810-810. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, doing the show live from Los Angeles this morning, talking with you about the tragedies that occurred here in Kansas City last Sunday, 1 week ago today, where 3 innocent, wonderful human beings were taken from us by a very distorted individual. And as I said, this is a tragedy that hits me close to home because, as I said, I was at the Jewish Community Center swimming just a couple hours before this happened. My son was playing basketball there a couple hours before this happened. This man could have taken out a lot more, so many more people. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Unfortunately, he did take out 3 wonderful human beings, as we've seen this past week. And the Kansas City community has shown a sign of solidarity by coming together and showing what we are about, what kinds of people we do have here. 3,000 people took part in a walk Friday evening, walking from the Jewish Community Center to Village Shalom, just barely a mile apart, if even that, showing support for the families and the people who were taken from us. And I think this is something we need to look at, about support, about respect. And in sports, I think we've gone too far. I've talked about this on this show for years. I've been here at Sports Radio 10 for 13 years. We've had way, way, way too many shows where there has been such anger and hostility with people about sports. It's a game. And I don't care if it's the Super Bowl, if it's the NCAA championship, it is still a game. And when we start bringing the word hatred into sports, we've gone too far. Muffet McGraw and Gino Mariema, in my opinion, went too far when they started talking about hating each other and the teams hating each other. That word needs to be taken out of the world of sports. I'd like to hear from you. Let's get some more calls in here. Our phone number is 913-381-810. I want to hear from you if you're a coach. I want to hear from you if you're an athlete, if you're a parent, if you're an official, if you're a fan. Do we use the word hatred? Do we use the word hate in sports? Way too much. Should we even be using it at all? And shouldn't we be shaking hands after a game and moving on in life? You may not like that person. You may never like that team. I know people, personal friends of mine, who don't like KU, who don't like MU, don't like K-State. They said, I never will. But they don't hate the other people. 913-381-810 is our number. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Give me a call. Let's talk. We're on the Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Dish Network is now offering more reasons than ever to switch to Dish. You get more options, more value, and more channels with the best picture available anywhere. And now you get more for less with the best deal Dish has ever offered. With packages starting at just $19.99 per month, call now for free next-day installation in many areas and free HD for 2 years. Call now and get HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Stars free for 3 months. Call today because for a limited time, when you subscribe to Dish, you'll also get a free upgrade to the most advanced HD DVR on the market, the Hopper, allowing you to record up to 2,000 hours of programming on 6 different channels at once. Call 888-210-8855 today and take advantage of the best deal Dish has ever offered. Call 888-210-8855. That's 888-210-8855. More ways to watch, more ways to save, and it's only from Dish. Call 888-210-8855 today.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it. You could junk it. Or you can donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-943-1356. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It'll be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now. Call 1-800-943-1356. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now. 1-800-943-1356. That's 1-800-943-1356.
We've got a wonderful event coming up in our area this May. It's the 7th annual Melanie Grace Kicking Against Cancer Soccer Benefit Game. It's Tuesday, May 6th at Lee Summit High School Soccer Complex. The event is a celebration of Melanie Grace Lindmark's life that was cut short by cancer in 2005. There will be soccer games between Lee Summit and Blue Springs, a silent auction, a 50-50 raffle, and T-shirt sales to raise money to support cancer patients. Remember, that's May 6th at Lee Summit High School. For more information or to find out how you can help, call 913-593-9658.
Welcome to our show here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. This is the Sports Psychology Hour, and I'm here every Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m. And this morning I'm calling in live from Los Angeles, California, where I'm out visiting, and I am doing the show with you in honor and respect of the people whose lives were taken from us tragically last Sunday morning here in Kansas City. You know, as we move on in life and these things happen more and more in our society, I think it affects all of us as we get older, just about how precious life is. I think of when we're younger, sometimes we may sometimes take things for granted, don't even think about things. But this past week in Kansas City, obviously we've had a lot going on. The police caught the shooter who was shooting up people on the highways, which is just unbelievable that someone would do that. And then we had this tragedy 1 week ago today, just a mile away from our studios. Jewish Community Center in Village Shalom here in Kansas City. As I mentioned earlier, both my son and I were there not long before this happened. I go to the Jewish Community Center every Sunday morning after the show when I'm in town, and I swim laps there. My son plays basketball there. I know a lot of people who were there. Fortunately for us, we left a couple hours before this senseless tragedy occurred. And my heart goes out to the families of the three people who were taken from us for no reason. Three wonderful people who loved life, who loved their families, taken from us by a man who is a very sick, distorted individual. And this happened because it's a hate crime. It was a hate crime. This man came up to Kansas City from southern Missouri to kill Jewish people. And what did he do? He didn't kill any Jewish people. He killed three people who aren't Jewish, and for no reason other than hatred. And it's made me think, as I said, as we look at the world of sports, do we take the word hatred into sport? The hatred is a terrible word to begin with. But just two weeks ago, as I mentioned, Muffet McGraw and Gino Auriemma, the coaches at Notre Dame and UConn, had their press conference the day before their national championship game, and they talked about the fact that they hate each other, their teams hate each other, their programs hate each other. There is hatred between us. Have we gotten so far in the world of sports that word needs to be occurring like that? I'd like to get your thoughts. Let's get some calls in here. I want to get your thoughts. 913-3810-810 is our number. 913-3810-810. If you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're an athlete, if you're an official, if you're a fan, do we use the words hatred in sports too much? Have we gone to the point where that word is out? It's unnecessary. Let's see what Paul has to say. Paul, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Good. I'm glad you're discussing this on Easter morning, which is a celebration of life and the ultimate love of, Jesus Christ giving his life for all of us. And it's unfortunate what happened last week. I knew the lady. I was very close to her husband, and she epitomized everything that this man stood against. She was a giving, loving, caring person, and at her funeral on Thursday, the priest said, look, we can be angry. It's okay to be angry, but the best testament would be, what would this lady have done to this man if she could? And we have to do what she couldn't do, and that is to forgive him, because she would have forgiven him, which is hard to do, and you can't do it if you're driven by hate. And I'm glad you tied this in with these coaches, because maybe this is a wake-up call for them and for all of us, that there's nothing wrong with competition. There's nothing wrong with sports. The spirit of competition brings out the best in people. But and the coaches particularly teach their athletes, great attributes that they can carry through life. But teaching them hate is not an attribute that anybody needs to carry. And
I think, Paul, you've hit it right on the head, and the problem we have here is that, unfortunately, it has filtered down into the world of sports to the point that you have a national championship game occurring between two undefeated teams who have to talk about the fact that they, quote-unquote, hate each other before the day before the game. And to me, this message then filters down to the lower levels, to the younger levels, to youth sports, to high school sports, to where that word is used by coaches, by kids about hating each other. And it's wrong. It's just plain flat wrong. And we need to do something to change this, because let's face it, what happened last week, and my condolences go to you as someone who knew this young lady, who seemed like just an incredibly wonderful human being. I met someone also last week who worked with her and said you couldn't have met a nicer lady. And to have three wonderful people taken by a distorted individual because of the word hate shows us how the problems in our society are there and do exist and are something we can't avoid. And in sports, it's gone too far. So what should we do, Paul? What should we do in the world of sports to try to curtail this, to try to control this, to try to get it under control?
Well, I think coaches have to lead by example, and I think the perfect example of that was, look at the difference between the Kentucky coach and the UConn coach, how they treated each other before that game. You could tell there was complete, total respect and strong feelings for each other, despite the fact that they were playing for each other, against each other for the national championship. And we can all only lead by example. And I think those two gentlemen wish the best for each other. They each wanted to beat each other intensely, but that didn't arise to hate.
Well, I think that's a very well stated point. And there is a situation, and Kevin Ollie coaching UConn, which is the men's team from the same school. He didn't use that word. It doesn't need to be used. It doesn't need to be used. There's nothing wrong in competition. There's nothing wrong in wanting to go out there and beat someone. But, we use the word hatred and we use the word kill in sports. They shouldn't be used. I mean, after this past week, it just hit me that these words need to be taken out of the world of sports. There's no reason to say we're going to go kill that other team. We hate them to the point we're going to kill them. I mean, those words carry such incredible power that I think they can be used. They're taken out of context, and unfortunately, in sports, that happens too much.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate that both coaches for UConn and Notre Dame made it clear how they felt for each other and did it publicly in a nationally televised venue.
You don't have to like each other. I mean, there are people, Paul, I don't like. I've been harmed by some people in my life, and I don't like those people. But I don't go around broadcasting something about hating those people because that's just wrong. It's just wrong. There are always going to be people we're not going to like. We're going to differ with opinions, with values, with beliefs. But we don't need to use the word hatred. I think it's gotten out of context in sports, and we need to really do a gut check. If you're a sports fan, if you're a coach, if you're a participant, about thinking about the use of that word. Paul, thank you so much for your call this morning, sir, and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. This morning I'm doing the show live from Los Angeles where I'm out visiting, and as I mentioned earlier, this show this morning is we're doing it in tribute to the three victims of the senseless shootings last Sunday in Kansas City at the Jewish Community Center in Village Shalom, just a little more than a mile away from our studios. I'm doing this show today because, as I've mentioned a couple times, I go to the Jewish Community Center every Sunday morning after I do the show when I'm in town, and I swim laps. My oldest son is in a basketball league there and plays basketball. We were both there last Sunday morning and left a couple hours before these shootings occurred. And it really hit me this past week that it could have been us, it could have been people we knew who were shot. He took 3 lives of 3 wonderful human beings from us because of the word hate. And my thoughts about the show this week were, this is a show about sports psychology, it's about sports, about the psychological components, but it takes us into other aspects. And the word hate needs to be eliminated from sports. It should be eliminated from our life. We've had so many tragedies that occur, yet it doesn't need to be used in sports. And I'd like to hear from you. If you are a sports fan, if you are an athlete, if you are a coach, if you are a parent, if you're a teacher, do we use the word hatred in sports too much? I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Let's see what MW has to say. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Yes, Andrew. It's always good talking to you too, sir. Last time I spoke with you, you had another incredible guest, and you were out in Los Angeles, and it's nice to talk to you at 2 shows in Los Angeles. Anyway, one of the reasons that I like tennis is because of love. Because there's always love in tennis, and that makes tennis seem to be a more amenable.
That is a great. That is awesome, MW. That's awesome. You're right. I played tennis my whole life. There is love in tennis. It's at the it's in the game when you start. It's love.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
I just kind of, and it's just really, really sad. I read both the gigantic articles about this hateful person, who drove up from Springfield or somewhere in central Missouri. And I mean, my gosh, it's just you just don't understand it. And I tried, and they said they note all the detectives and everyone that was involved in it. And I'm really, really happy with the Kansas City Police Department how they were able to, they went into great detail on how they finally were able to catch the person who was shooting people. But my goodness gracious, there was no motive shown or anything. It's just a sickness, and it's just too bad that somehow or another they can't. This fellow from who did the shooting at the Jewish Community Center, that guy, he was just a nut, powder keg waiting to go, and he had I mean,
Well, he's lived his life enmeshed in hatred, MW. If you read all the stories about him, and he's a very distorted individual. But to take this to sports, I know you're a huge Royals fan, and you must be happy that the team's been winning and in first place now. But look, when we play a game, I think that's a sports contest. It's just that it's a game, and when the game is over. Yeah, if you've really busted your butt and put everything into it, and you don't come out on top, it's disappointing. But do you have to hate your opponent? Do you have to despise them? No. And I think we've gone too far in using that word. And you love Bruce Chen. I know you do. You've talked about it before. I've had Bruce on the show. Yes. I know Bruce from when I was the Royal psychologist, and think the world of Bruce Chen. He is a wonderful human being. Bruce Chen, he would never use this word when he's talking about his opponents. He would want to go out there and, he wants to strike and beat them. But after the game, I guarantee you, if teams could shake hands, Bruce would be the first one in line to go over there and shake the hands of the opponent, win or lose.
Talking about
Bruce
Bruce
Chen,
respect. It's interesting that he's going to wind up, he just has to win 2 more games to be the all-time winningest pitcher from Panama, and I'm real happy about that. He'll pass Rivera for wins. I mean, he couldn't never catch up with him in saves and stuff, but that's a pretty interesting stat that Bruce Chen is going to wind up being the winningest pitcher with a native of Panama. And always great talking to you, Dr. Jacobs, and I love your show, and I agree there's no place for hatred in sports. You just compete.
Or in life, MW. We need to get it out of life, but definitely in sports. Listen, my friend, you take care of yourself. Thanks for calling in.
You're the same, and we love your show. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's see what Maurice has to say. Maurice, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Doctor. Glad to talk to you. I'm glad that you got out of there in time, you and your son. It really struck me when I rushed out to the car to catch a show, and I was in tears when the news station showed all of those people in support behind those shootings. And the one thing that I do want to mention, I'm kind of trembling now, is that I find it awesome that through tragedies, people always seem to come together. I think we should do more of that before tragedies. Maybe a weekly thing. It just uplifts people. I know it uplifted me to see all of those people make that, like you said, less than 1 mile walk in support. And
3,000 people, Maurice, in a couple of days made that walk. It's a very short walk between those two facilities.
Well,
like I said, it's just right up the street from our studios.
That shows the love, Doc. I work 12 blocks from the JCC, but that shows the love of people. And so talking about the subject of hate, all you have to do is add the R in there, and we can change that to heart and show love. But, I just feel like it was just a beautiful thing to see that throughout all of this tragedy, how we remain resilient as a people and show our love for the lost and for the mourning. More than anything, that's what I took from that. I don't like to give, idiots any kind of room for, exposure. I just feel like, like you said, this guy was meshed in hatred, and I just hope they get rid of him soon enough, because we don't need those kind of people.
Well, Maurice, you and I have both been, obviously, had to deal with these things in our lives, and as most people do. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people like this guy out there. But you know what? We need to get rid of it in life, but in sports is about competition. It is about rivalries. It's about bringing out your best, but it's about you and what you can do. It's not about harm. And this word needs to be taken out of the world of sports. Well, as always, my friend, thanks for calling. You have a great day.
You too, Doc.
Let's see what Matt has to say. Matt, good morning, sir. How are you? Matt, are you there? Okay, I guess we don't have Matt. All right, we're going to go back to another commercial break here. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm doing the show live this morning from Los Angeles. Here's what we're talking about today. As we all know, the tragedies that occurred in Kansas City last Sunday with taking of 3 people's lives by a very, very distorted individual, shooting 3 innocent people, killing them, taking them from us, from their families, from the people that love them, and from our community. It's about hate. This is a hate crime. And this word, in maybe one of the most religious times of the year, being that today is Easter and it's been Passover this past week, very, very religious times for people. We need to eliminate the word hate from sports. We need to eliminate the word hate from life, but especially from sports. And I'd like to hear from you if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're an athlete, if you're a fan. Give me a call at 913-381-0810. 913-381-0810. Follow me on Twitter at DRJ Sports Psych. Give me a call and let's talk. We're on Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 10 WHP.
Hi, I'm Joe Theismann. No matter what stadium I broadcast from, I'd always have to find the closest bathroom, just in case I had that sudden urge to go. My prostate was giving me fits. But then I heard about Super Beta Prostate's nationwide 1,000,000-bottle giveaway, and I got a free bottle. What a difference it made. I don't have to go as often, and I don't have to get up at night as much. Now I wake up refreshed and ready to tackle anything. What's so special about Super Beta Prostate is that it's the most widely used supplement supporting a healthy prostate. Super Beta Prostate has sold over 5 million bottles, and it also has a trusted 10-year history, and it's all natural. There's no reason to accept the issues that come with an aging prostate. So get Super Beta Prostate today.
Call right now when you learn how to get a free bottle of Super Beta Prostate. Pay only shipping and handling. Call 1-800-459-7640. That's 1-800-459-7640. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call 1-800-459-7640. That's 1-800-459-7640.
Lavelle Palmer has to score this, or Sporting Kansas City are champions.
Every time Sporting KC takes the field this year, we'll remember.
Palmer, right-footed, he hits the crossbar! Kansas City as a league champion!
But true champions are never satisfied. There's new hardware to be won. Follow Sporting KC on their quest to defend the MLS Cup, right here on Sports Radio 810, WHB.
Good morning, everyone. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and welcome to our show here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm here every Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m. This morning I'm doing the show live from Los Angeles. We're out visiting this weekend, and as I said, we're doing this show this morning in a different context. We're not talking about confidence in sports, and we're not talking about building a positive attitude. We're talking about an issue that's much, much more important, and that's about life. As you all know, 1 week ago today, just a couple of blocks from our studios, 3 people's lives were taken from us by a sick individual who intentionally drove up to Kansas City to kill people. A hate crime. He came up here to kill people because they're Jewish, and ironically, he killed 3 people who aren't Jewish. I go to the Jewish Community Center every Sunday morning after our show when I'm in town and swim laps. My son is there playing basketball. We had left the center just a couple hours prior to this tragedy occurring. Could have been us. Could have been people we know. The word hatred has been used to describe this. Today is Easter. It's Passover this past week. A very religious time. A time to reflect, a time to think about family, a time to think about life. And as I said earlier, just before the women's NCAA championship basketball game 12 days ago, their coach is Muffet McGraw from Notre Dame. and Gino Auriemma from Connecticut had a press conference. They talked in this press conference about hating each other. Hating each other before the national championship game. So, if you're a coach of a 10-year-old girls team or a boys team and you're watching that press conference listening, well, the coaches at that national championship game can hate each other, and we can too. We need to eliminate the word hatred from sports. We need to eliminate it from life, but we need to eliminate it from sports. And I'd like to hear from you. I have plenty of time to take your calls. I want to hear from some more people about this. If you're a coach, if you're a fan, if you're an athlete, how can we eliminate hatred from sports? 913-381-0810 is our phone number. 913-381-0810. I'd like to hear from you and get your thoughts on this. Get your opinions. I think this has made a lot of us think in Kansas City just about how precious life is, and it's made us think about how strong our community is. The show of solidarity Friday night when 3,000 people walked from the Jewish Community Center to Village Shalom and back, showing support for our community from the people who were harmed by this terrible tragedy. So I'd like to hear from you. If you are an athlete, if you've been in a fierce competition, a rivalry, does the word hatred need to be brought into that? Can you be competitive? Can you be hardcore and go after it? But then when the game is over, when the contest is over, shake hands. I grew up playing tennis, and after every tennis match, you went to the net and shook hands with your opponent, whether you won or whether you lost. And I've seen people, I've worked with people, I've worked with teams where people did not like each other, but they shook hands afterwards. You see it at a hockey game. You see it at college basketball games. You see it with a lot of NFL games where players go up and shake hands and hug after a game. Not all of them. You don't see it in Major League Baseball, which is interesting. If you really sit and think about it, Major League Baseball, after a game, the players go in their respective dugouts and go away. Now, a lot of these guys see each other after the games, but when the game is over, they don't go out and shake hands. They go the opposite directions. 913-381-0810 is our number. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. And I'd like to get your thoughts. Is the word hatred used in sports too much? I mean, it shouldn't be used at all, in my opinion, but how can we eliminate hatred from sports? 913-381-0810. If you're a coach, I want to hear from you. Have you used that word? Have you had athletes or parents use that word? How can we eliminate that word from life, but most importantly from sports, as we talk about that on this show, because this show's about sports? What do we do when that word is brought up? And one of our first callers this morning mentioned the word respect. I think it starts at the top. When you have the head coaches at Notre Dame and UConn talking about hating each other before their national championship game, they don't like each other. But they went too far by using the word hatred. That word needs to be eliminated from sports, in my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. You can tell me you don't believe in what I have to say. That's fine. We're all entitled to our opinions. But I'd like to hear from you. We have plenty of time left to get some calls in here. I'd like to hear from you. If you are an athlete, if you're a fan, if you're a coach, 913-381-0810 is our number. 913-381-0810. This tragedy has touched so many people. It's affected so many people. But I think it's also shown, as I said, the solidarity, the love in the Kansas City community. As MW, our caller, mentioned earlier, the word love is in tennis. It needs to be in all sports. The Kansas City community has shown what a great, strong community this is by coming to support the victims of this tragedy, their families, and show that we do care about each other. I love sports. I've played sports my whole life. I've worked as a sports psychologist for 33 years. I've worked with the Olympic team, with professional teams, with collegiate teams, with individual athletes at all levels. And we talk about trying to bring the best out of what you can do, trying to be your best, trying to find that inner strength to succeed. Yes, you want to defeat your opponents. You want to score a lower score on the golf course. You want to have a higher score at the end of the game. You want to win. That's what sports is about. It's about the competitive nature. And we all have heard for years how sports is a microcosm of life. But does the word hatred need to be involved in that? 913-3810810 is our number. If you are a parent, I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever heard your kids come home and say, I hate that guy, or I hate that team, or I hate somebody on my team? What do you do when that word comes up? How do you handle that, especially in the world of sports? 913-3810810 is our number. If you are a coach, and that word has been mentioned by one of your assistant coaches, by one of the athletes you're coaching, what do you do? What do you say? How do you get that word out of the context, out of the vocabulary, out of the conversation? I think sports should not be about hatred. It should be about respect. It should be about seeing what you can bring out in yourself. I've been working, as I said, for 33 years doing this. I've encountered a lot of people along the way. Boys, girls, men, women, athletes at all levels. This word has been used before. Now, it just made me think. It's made me, as someone who does this show, I've been on the air in Kansas City for 23 years now. I've never, ever done a show talking about this word before. But as I said, it's hit home for me as I was at the Jewish Community Center just a couple hours before, as was my son. More importantly, as was my son. We were both there. There were people there we knew. This could have happened to us, could have happened to anybody who was there. Fortunately, as I said, it was raining last Sunday, or there would have been people all over the tennis courts, right in front of where this guy was shooting. We would have had a lot more people harmed by this senseless tragedy. But I think what we've learned in Kansas City this past week is how strong our community is. How so many people have come together, how so many people have shown support, how so many people have proven that our community is a community of people who do care about each other. And I think we need to show that more often. I think we need to show support of people more often, not just when a tragedy occurs, but just every day. It's just a simple thing of holding a door open for somebody when they're walking behind you, or helping somebody when they need some help. Sports is about competition. It's about rivalries. It's about growth. It's about seeing what you can do. But when the word hatred comes into sports, as it was used by the UConn and Notre Dame coaches at their press conference before the women's NCAA championship game 2 weeks ago, I think you've taken it out of context and you've gone too far. I don't believe we need to hate our opponents. I don't believe we need to hate the other team. We don't have to like them. We don't have to like what they're about. But when that game is over, the word respect needs to be shown more. The word respect needs to be viewed more strongly, and it needs to be integrated into what we do. Once again, our phone number is 913-3810810. I'd like to hear from you. We still have a few minutes left in the show. If you feel the same way I do, if you disagree with me, I'd like to hear from you. 913-3810810. As I said, I've been on the radio now for 23 years in Kansas City. I've been working as a sports psychologist for 33 years. Never done a show about this before. I'm glad we've done this show this morning. Hopefully some of you out there listening will share the message. Will share with your kids, with your friends, with your teams. And talk about this word and talk about getting rid of it, because it has no place in life, especially in sports. And I think it's important. Coaches are role models. Coaches are guides. They are psychologists. But as a coach, you have a tremendous impact on the young people you work with, that you're guiding along in their growth. And I think we need to focus more on self-development. We need to focus more on growing. We need to focus more on how people can learn to compete and get the best out of themselves, yet respect their opponent when the game is over. And like I said earlier, I think the handshake is the beginning of that. Whether it's at the end of a tennis match, you see it, and you watch golfers. You watch them play. At the end of their competition, they shake hands. even when they lose, they shake hands. I think that's the message we need to have in all sports contests. And I think the fact that it's not done in all sports is harmful to our society. I think it's something we need to focus on. You know, if you'd like to get a hold of me and share your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. You can reach me through my website, which is winnersunlimited.com. You can send me an email there, drj@winnersunlimited.com. Sign up for my Twitter account. You can follow me on Twitter at drjsportpsych, at drjsportpsych. You can get a hold of me at my office. That number is 816-561-5556. Always looking forward to hearing from you, getting your thoughts about topics for this show. And this past week in Kansas City, we've had a lot of tragedy, a lot of harm, a lot of heart. We've had a lot of people step up to the plate and show what they're about. We've seen tremendous shows of encouragement, of respect, and of support and love. And what it's made me think is, as a human being who cares about people, who has feelings and expresses them, how important it is to show the positive side of life. Because you just don't know what's going to happen. You know, I always like to tell people I like to look out the front windshield, not the rearview mirror. I want to see what's in front, not behind. But you always have to peek behind. You have to learn from it. Hopefully you've gotten something from this show that will help you. Hopefully you've taken something today from the show. As a coach, as a parent, as an athlete, as a fan, maybe change your perspective a little bit. I know this past week has changed mine. I love sports. I love participating in sports. I love watching sports. I love being involved in the world of sports, working as a sports psychologist. But what's happened this past week is going to make me realize I need to shake hands after every match, after every competition I'm in, and respect my opponents. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Love to hear from you. As I said, you can reach me at 816-561-5556. Follow me on Twitter at @drjsportpsych. Have a great week, Kansas City. We'll talk to you next Sunday here on Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 10 WHB.